Hey, well, good morning and welcome to another daily devotional. Today we are continuing our way through 1 Samuel. Today we are in 1 Samuel chapter 4. So there's a lot of characters at play here, so make sure to have watched these last couple of days to really know what is going on in this story. One of the things that kind of makes the Old Testament a little bit difficult to understand is if you just try and jump in the middle or try and jump in this section or that section without getting some context. So make sure before we kind of get into today's 1 Samuel chapter 4 that you've read the first 3 chapters so you can kind of get an idea of where we are at. But in chapter 4, here we are. Israel now steps into war with the Philistines. So in this era, there was not really a huge dominant people. There wasn't Egypt, there wasn't Rome, there wasn't this huge group of people that was just ruling the area. There was just kind of all of these sister tribes, the Moabites, the Ammonites, there's all these different peoples. And so Israel and the Philistines now kind of get into this war against each other. Not necessarily a war of a huge country trying to take over another one. It's kind of two people on the same playing field now coming into war. And so the Philistines are getting ready to attack the Israelites. And the Israelites begin to do something, okay? So this is what the Israelites say. There's all of these men are coming, right? So there was one kind of preliminary attack. The Philistines attacked and defeated the army of Israel, killing 4,000 men. So in the first kind of scuffle, the Philistines and Israel get into a fight, and 4,000 of the Israelites die. Then they keep going on, and then the Israelites say, why did the Lord allow us to be defeated by the Philistines, right? I thought we're God's people. How come people beat us up? Then he goes on to say this. Let's bring the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord from Shiloh. If we carry it into battle with us, this is the key phrase, it will save us from our enemies. So at this point, the Ark of the Covenant was given to the Israelites as an image of a covenant. Ark of the Covenant, meaning this is just a symbol of the covenant between God and man. It wasn't necessarily like the ark itself was God. It just represented something. But as human nature follows, we always seem to put more weight into objects or things that are visible and tangible than into actually searching towards God himself. And so the people of Israel begin to put all of their hope in this ark. And they say, if we take this ark out, then we will for sure win. And so they all start partying and shouting and saying, yeah, it was like the best locker room speech of all time. Everyone's shouting and yelling and being crazy. And then all of a sudden the Philistines hear the camp across the valley. I don't know if you've ever been in a valley in the desert. You can hear things for miles. So they hear, oh my goodness, the Israelites are going crazy. They're going to try and kill us. We need to fight like desperate men. And they actually say to each other, stand up like men and let's fight. So they stand up and they fight the Israelites and utterly slaughter the Israelites. 30,000 Israelites died. So the Philistines fought desperately and Israel was defeated. The slaughter was great. 30,000 Israelite soldiers died that day. The survivors turned and fled to their tents. The Ark of the Covenant was captured, and Hophni and Phinehas, the 2 sons of Eli, were killed. So if you're following in the previous chapter, there was a man named Eli who was a prophet in this time, and God's big beef with him was that he was not a very good father to his boys. His boys were doing all kinds of horrible things, and he wasn't correcting them. He wasn't doing anything. And those 2 sons' names were Hophni and Phinehas. And if you actually looked in the beginning of this, when it came to let's bring the Ark of the Covenant with us, all of this, it says, Hophni and Phinehas, the sons of Eli, were also with the Ark of the Covenant. So literally these utterly evil people were there with the Ark of the Covenant saying, well, I've got the Ark of the Covenant, so that makes everything okay. I'm going to win every battle. And this kind of the equivalent these days would be people that put on a cross and say, oh, here is my little cross. Here's my rosary. I've got this symbol of a godly life, so then I'm protected. Everything's good. But God was like, no, that's not what it's about. I'm what it's about. God is saying that he's what it's about today, not any other symbol. So don't be like the Israelites and say this symbol of a relationship with God gets me somewhere in life. You don't need to have a symbol. You don't need to have a cross. You don't need to have a tattoo of Jesus to be a Christian. You don't need any of those things. They're just simply symbols that point towards God. And God is really what it's all about. And we have to be careful to not fall into the temptation to see the symbol as what saves us. Baptism itself doesn't save us. Communion itself has nothing to do with our salvation. These are simply just symbols that point to something with God. Just like having a wedding ring doesn't make you a good husband. It just points to a covenant that you have with your spouse. And so remember today that the thing that is most important in your life is God. Is a relationship with God, not just a symbol of Christianity. But even if evil people say, well, I'm going to put on a cross. Phineas and Hophni, they said, well, I'm going to carry the Ark of the Covenant. Let's do this. They were utterly evil people, far from God. But they thought, as long as I've got the cross, as long as I've got the Christian music playing in my car, as long as I've got the Christian bumper sticker, I'm good to go. That's not what it's about. It's all about having a relationship with God. So today, don't forget to have a relationship with God. Be praying today. Make sure to be connected with Him, not just a symbol of God, but actually be connected with God. So I hope to see you tomorrow for 1 Samuel chapter 5. See you tomorrow.